Friends, hello. Welcome to my fingies and welcome to my tabletop. So I have an experimental kind of little tutorial here for you today. We are going to make a pillowcase. Now this is so simple that I honestly kind of feel like I'm cheating you guys here, because I think this is probably one of the simplest things that I have ever done. But I also really love the way the pillow turned out, and so I wanted to show you in case you also wanted to make a fun, themed, colorful crochet pillowcase along with me. So this pillow that's right here, this is a 12 by 12 polyfill pillow. I got it from Joann's. It was really cheap. I think I needed like $5 more to get free shipping at Joann's. So I got this because it was like on sale or something for $6. It is striped in the middle, and the pillowcase has a button here. Hopefully you can see this. So that you can take it off and change it out, because this is a removable little pillowcase here. But you can also very easily make a pillowcase just like this for a bigger throw pillow, a smaller throw pillow, heck, even like your pillows that go on your bed, even if you use some really nice, soft, squishy yarn. You can also use this same technique to make a bag. This is a bag that I made for my Nintendo Switch. I'm really hoping you can see this in frame. It's the same concept here as it is in the pillow, even down to the button, although I did the flap here a little bit differently. But the same concept is for the bag as it is for the pillowcase. You don't have to make it striped. You could make it solid. You could make it even in a variegated. Use up scraps. The pillowcase itself required 4.8 ounces of yarn, which is 136 grams, according to my scale, which means, for example, the Red Heart Super Saver that I use both in the pillow and that I have here that I'm going to use in the tutorial, this 7-ounce ball would make more than one pillow for you. It wouldn't make more than one full pillows, but it would certainly get you a good way there. And if you don't use the flap like I did, then it would probably totally make 2 pillows for you. And so this is what we are going to do today. This is going to take me several days of recording, so I apologize if like the lighting differs from clip to clip, or, you know, my voice sounds different, anything like that. This is all really a learning experience. So with all that said, let's get into the supplies that you will need. So I have here, this is just a 1-inch little plastic button. It's for the flap. If you don't make a flap, and I will show you, of course, how to close it off and not make a flap, but in case you do, you need a button. Of course, you need a crochet hook. This is my 5.5, or excuse me, the 5.0, the 5mm Omi hook, resin hook, an H hook. I'm going to be using that. Of course, you will need a pair of scissors and a couple of needles. This one is a smaller one, a smaller eye needle. And then this is just the regular old like yarn needle that I use. They're both blunt. You don't need a sharp sewing needle, but you do need a small needle that will fit through. Whoa, it fit too good. That will fit completely through the button and the holes in the button if you're using a button. And then some stitch markers. These are just those good old plastic stitch markers that you probably have a million of, just like I do. And You would need probably 2 if they come in handy to you, and I'll explain that as well. But if you think some stitch markers might help you keep track of stitches and all that stuff, then yeah, I'll show you how to use those too. Otherwise, you don't even need a pillow form, really. You can fill it with polyfill or yarn scraps. If you make it small, you could fill it with pretty much anything. And if you're making a bag, then of course you don't need a filling at all. But we will go over all of that as we go here. And so without further ado, let's just get to the actual tutorial and not so much of me babbling here. Okay, so to get started, if you're doing a pillow like I am and you have a polyfill pillow insert like I do, then if you have a specific size pretty much, then the size of the item is going to determine your chain length. And so what I mean is to fit around the pillow, you're going to chain exactly how long of a chain you need to go from one corner to the other corner. If you're just filling with polyfill or something else, yarn scraps, both, whatever, then you can kind of chain as many chains as you feel like chaining. But for our purposes, for making a small 12 by 12 pillow form case, we are going to do 35 chains. Now, at the end, we're going to add some more, but to start with, you're just going to chain as many chains as you need to get across the entire object that you're trying to cover. So, with our yarn here, and I'm really hoping we're in frame, you are going to make a slip knot. And so I make a slip knot this way. So you hold the short end of your yarn, wrap it around 2 of your fingers twice. Pull the back over the front, pull the back over the front again and off your finger, and then pull the short tail tight. And we have a slip knot. Now, the size of yarn that you use and the hook that you use also doesn't really matter. You can make this out of any yarn with any hook that you absolutely positively could ever want to make. The hook size recommendation on the ball band for Red Heart Super Saver is a 5mm. That's what I'm going with, although in general I would probably use a 5.5 hook with worsted weight acrylic yarn. But since you're trying to cover an object, I thought going down half a hook size to the 5mm H hook might be a good idea because it'll give you tighter stitches, less gaps, and more coverage for the item underneath. So, to start, we are going to do 35 chains. And again, the number of chains that you make doesn't really matter. And so I have 3 here, but we need 35. You don't need to make an even number or an odd number. It doesn't matter. And we're going to add a couple at the end to turn with, but I'll explain that. So, to make a chain, because I didn't explain it, you are going to yarn over with the yarn over your hook, pull it through. That's a chain. Do it again. That's another chain, and we have 5. So I'm not going to make you watch me here make 35, but that's all I'm going to be doing here for just the first few minutes, making chains. And I will come back and I will show you what to do next. Okay, so we have our chain of 35 chains here. And just to show you, the chain, hopefully that's all in frame there. The chain goes from one edge of the pillow to the other. So it fits across the pillow. And we are going to add 2 more chains to the end here, just for purposes of turning. And so 1, 2. Now there are 37 chains here. And so for the first row of stitches here, the first and second chains that we just made here at the end, we're going to skip those. And we are going to go into this third chain right here. And in this third chain, we're going to make a half double crochet. And so a half double is yarn over, insert into the top V, part of the V of the stitch, the chain stitch, pull a loop through. We have 3 there. Yarn over and pull through all 3. Now that's a half double crochet, and this chain 2 here as well counts as a stitch. And so I'm going to take one of my stitch markers here, and I'm going to put it through the top chain of that chain 2. So just to confirm for myself that this is the first stitch of our round here, our row, our round, because it will come into play in a bit here. But we can go back, and we're going to do half double crochets all the way down the entire chain. So yarn over into the next chain, pull up a loop, pull through all 3. That's a half double. We'll do another one. And there we go. So technically there are 4 half doubles here. We've done 3, and with this chain 2 at the end, we have 4. And we are just going to do a half double crochet all the way down the length of the chain. And when we get there, I will show you what to do, because that's where the whole construction of the pillowcase begins. We're not going to be sewing anything or seaming anything other than the button, if you decide to use a button, but no other sewing, because it's all going to be one piece. And so I will meet you back up when we get all the way down here to the end of the chain. And just to point out before I go, I'll grab the needle here, maybe it's a bit easier. So with a chain stitch, there's 2 stitches, 2 pieces of yarn that make a V, right? Only work through this top loop, that top loop there, because we're going to work on the other side of the chain when we come back, and I'll show you what I mean. But to make it easier for yourself, just go through this top single loop of each of these chain stitches, okay? And when we get down to the end, I will meet you back up here. Okay, so I brought you down a little bit more because I should have done that before, but that's okay. So we're here at the end of the chain. We have 1 chain here left, and there's a half double crochet in all the chains all along here. And so in this very last chain stitch here, we are going to put 3 half double crochets. So you're going to yarn over, insert again, still into that top loop, pull through, yarn over and pull through all 3. So that's 1. There's 2. And the last one here. Tail is going to be in the way. That's all right. So yarn over, pull through all 3. So that's 3 there in the end. And if you look, it kind of turned us to start going this way. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. The next row, although it's more like a continuation of the current row, is just going to work back along this entire chain. We're going to be working in the other 2 loops of the chains that we didn't work in before. And so if you are maybe more of a beginner than I am, and you think it might be helpful to keep track of both ends, so we have the stitch marker here on one end, put another stitch marker in this second half double that you made here at the end. So not this V, but this second V. And that's essentially the middle, the very middle of the end. And so you have a stitch marker on this end and on this end. So anyway, moving on to the other half of the first round. First round. Could go either way, really. But I digress. So the next stitch that you're going to make, which is still a half double, so you're going to yarn over, it's going to go right here. This spot, if I can, oh my goodness, if I could grab the yarn, is directly beneath the kind of second to last stitch there. And we're just gonna make a half double. And you are gonna use these crisscross bottom half of the stitches, the chain stitches, to make a half double underneath every one of these half doubles. Go underneath both loops there of the chain, make your half double. The next one, go through both of those crisscrossed loops, pull up your 3, and then half double. And so you're going to do that all the way back till we get to the end here where the first stitch marker is. And I will explain how to go on from there. I guess that will be maybe round 2, because this is still mostly round 1. So when I get there, I will meet you back. So we've made it all the way to the end of the other half of our chain. And the very last stitch that I did here is in the very bottom of the first half double that we made. So not the chain 2, but the half double, the chain that we went into for that half double. I put another one in there. And so the next stitch that you were going to do is in the very top of this chain 2 that we marked with the stitch marker. And so I'm going to pull it out just for temporary. I'm going to yarn over. We're going to go directly into that top of that chain 2 and half double. And then if you want to keep track of your rounds, maybe it's helpful to you, have at it. This stitch is going to be your first stitch of this round and every round if you keep track. Every time you hit the stitch marker, just move it on up to the stitch you just made and keep going. If, however, you don't need the stitch marker, this was the most difficult part of the project. It's already done. We have done the hard part. We are just going to be working in rounds now, continuous rounds, spirals, around and around and around and around. Because this seam here, where the chain is in the middle, can you see? Right here. This is the bottom of our pillowcase. So our pillow is going to sit right there. It's going to fold up. And this is going to be the outside of the bottom of the pillow. Okay? If you can kind of imagine what we're doing, that's what we're doing. So the very next stitch, which is a yarn over and half double, just like we've been doing, it's going to go into this first half double that we made in that first round, the first chain stitch we worked into, half double. Then the next is just in the right in the next one. We're just going to be working in spirals here from now on. Half double, yarn over, insert into the next, pull up a loop, half double. This is all you're going to do. If you are maybe practicing half double crochets, this is an awesome project to do because you are going to do a lot of them. And the number of stitches that you have really doesn't matter. If you started with a smaller chain than I did, a bigger chain than I did, the amount of stitches that you have will correspond, of course, to the number of chains that you did, doubled plus 4. to account for the 2 extras that we made at this corner and the chain 2 that we skipped and the extra stitch down here, because there's 3 in each corner. But the number of stitches that you have, it doesn't matter. You don't have to count unless you really, really want to. The only thing that you will need to worry about is doing 1 half double in every half double from now until the end of your project. Oh goodness. Struggling here a little bit. It's also really an awkward angle, so I apologize for my struggles. But that's all that you're going to be doing. Just a half double in every half double. And I will come back and check back in with you, maybe once I have a good few rows here done. And I will let you know how to keep going and kind of what to do from there. And that's really the bulk of this project, is just around and around and around. It's why I like doing projects like these so much, is because I can really kind of zone out. And as long as I don't skip a stitch along here, I can just work at my own pace, at my own leisure, you know, watch a movie, watch TV, space out, whatever, whatever I feel like doing. And so, yeah, I'm going to get some more rows here done. Every time I hit a stitch marker, I'll just move it up to the next stitch that I just made. And you do the same, and we will meet back up here in, you know, a few rows or so. All right, friends, welcome back. We are on day 2 now of doing our pillowcase, and I have done quite a few rows here. Again, I apologize if the lighting is maybe different, or I sound different, or anything like that. We're still learning here. And like I said, we're on day 2. So it's in the morning. So I apologize if I have morning voice here. But I've done quite a few rows on the bottom of the pillowcase. And I thought I would do a color change here for you. Now on the actual pillowcase, hopefully you can see here, there are a couple of places here where it's very obvious that I changed color, and that's okay, because this is the back of the pillow. Where the button goes and the flap goes is the back of the pillow. The front has the nice clean straight lines, and I wanted to do this absolutely as simply as I could. And so we're gonna do a really simple, straightforward color change. There are probably as many ways to do a color change in crochet as there are crocheters out there. So this is just the way that we are gonna do it. Now I did want to show you as well the stitch markers. I have left them in, I have moved them up, and this one is here and this one is over here. And that's just kind of the nature of crocheting in the round. The end, the quote-unquote end, shifts a little bit. But I left them in just to keep going along in case you have the stitch markers in too. And the tail is still here inside, which means this stitch marker, hopefully we can see this. This stitch marker is the one that was in the chain 2 at the very beginning of the second row. So the one that's over here that I stopped right before, this is the other side of the chain. And I'm gonna do the color change right here because I want this pillow, I want them to match. And we're gonna change to the purple on the green one here. And the amount of rows here, it kind of matches up, so we're just kind of winging it. There is no need to change colors. If you just want a solid pillowcase, keep going. If you want to do stripes like me, then I'll show you how to do that. And you can do stripes anywhere along here. But I will say, make sure when you're doing color changes that once you do one, you do all the color changes on the same side. So This now is the back of my pillowcase. It's always going to be the back of my pillowcase because the front will be nice and clean and you get it, right? So the other color that we are using is the Red Heart Super Saver. This one is called Amethyst. The other color we have been using, oh, I hit the mic there. Oh, sorry. This is Spring Green, the other color we have been using. But we're going to swap to the Amethyst color. And so this is the way that I do a super simple color change. We're not doing anything fancy. This is a super simple project, so we're doing a super simple color change. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker out of the next stitch. And we are going to start like we're doing a half double, just like the next stitch. So you're going to yarn over, insert into the next stitch, pull up a loop so you have 3, and you're going to stop right there with the green, okay? So you're going to hold the tail, the green kind of off to the side so it's out of the way, and then you're going to pull the purple up. Hopefully this is all in frame. You're going to hook the new color on and finish your stitch with the new color. And so I like to kind of pull your old color tight, pull the new color tight, keep all the tails out of the way. And then the very next stitch that we do is going to be with the purple. And so you yarn over, pull up a loop, complete your half double, and then you are free to start stitching along with your new color like nothing has changed. And you can then cut the green or your original color, whatever color you're using, the original color here, clip it off, and you can weave in the ends when you're ready to weave in the ends. And yeah, that's it. I'm now going to do several rounds here to match the other pillow. I'll do enough purple to match the green. I'm not counting rows because this is, again, really easy, really simple. We're just kind of eyeballing it. And so once I get up to here, I will change color again, go back to the green, and I will probably meet you back when I have all of the pillowcase itself done. So when we're up here at the top, because I'll show you how to make the flap part. But for now, it's just more of the same. It's just half double crochets around and around and around until you get the height that you need to cover the item that you're making, whether it's a pillow form or if you have a specific measurement in mind, whatever it is. Just keep going around and around, moving your stitch markers if you have them in the ends. And I can even put one back here. It would be in this first purple stitch. Is the first stitch there that would be the end of the row there. And yeah, I'm going to work on this. You work on yours, and we will meet back up when the pillowcase is just about done. All right, friends. We have made it to the top of the pillow here. In total, I have done 27 rounds from the very bottom, way down here. Hopefully you can see this. All the way up to the top is 27 rounds. And I still have the stitch markers in from the beginning and end of the first round. And as you can see, they really shift. It's the purple one here and the pink one here. But I left them in just in case you were too. But for this next part, we are going to finish off the pillow or do the flap for the pillow. And so I'm going to pull the stitch marker out that I had, just keeping my place there. And I made this one pink just so I could tell it apart, because this is where the very beginning of the chain was initially. This is the front of the pillow. The back of the pillow has the color changes here and here that you can kind of see very, very clearly. And they're always on the back, so I kept to that too. And we are going to make either a flap to close it off with the button, like this one, my original one, with the button here. Get it in there. Or I'm going to show you how to close it off completely if you want to just keep the pillow inside the pillowcase, or if you're doing stuffing, if you're stuffing it separately and you want to close it off. So that's what we're going to work on now. So the next step really is to finish off this top here. I'm going to take out the stitch marker, and to be honest, you no longer need these stitch markers. These were just to help you keep track of your rounds as you were going. So we no longer need these because we have completed the bulk of the pillow. And so all we're going to do now, once I get myself situated here, make sure we're in frame, is to do a half double all the way across, just like you've been doing this entire time. Whoops, lost that one. Let's try that again. And the awesome thing about this particular project is if you are making a pillowcase like I am, it kind of naturally folds in half. And that's gonna be really helpful here when we get to the end, because that's where we're gonna make something different. So I'm just going to half double in each of these stitches. I'm almost there, so I'm just gonna get to it here on camera with you. And I apologize if you can hear some dancing feet in the background. My little dog Ralphie, he's just kind of prancing about here. It's morning time currently, and so he's like all hyper and you know, morning dog stuff. So we're almost to where I think the corner or the edge would be. Let's see how that looks. Let's do one more. Now again, I'm not counting anything here. I'm just kind of doing it by eye. So you don't have to be like super specific about what you're doing here, because it'll all work out in the end, I promise. So with this last stitch here, there is now one full row here at the top. And if you were going to do a stuffing inside, or you're not stuffing it with a separate pillow form that you would take out, that you want to just close this off, this is pretty much how you would do it. Oh goodness, I think I pulled a stitch out by moving things around. So let's do this last one again, if I could grab the yarn. There we go. So on this side, and you can take the other stitch marker out if you had one. Oh, are we in frame? Really hope so. And so basically, if you're just going to close this off here, you are going to take the top here, and wherever it kind of naturally folds over, you're just going to stitch along the top here. And so I'm going to do single crochets, and you're going to insert your hook through the next half double on this front side, and then the corresponding stitch on the back side, pull a loop through all of them, and single crochet. Let's do that again. So insert into the next stitch, and into the stitch on the opposite side, pull up a loop, single crochet. And you would do that all the way down to the very end after after you have decided to fill it. So maybe stitch along till maybe halfway and then fill it, get it nice and full, and then complete the stitching along the top, and that will close off the entire pillowcase so that you won't be able to remove anything from it, but it'll be closed off. And with this seam along the bottom, or along this edge here, I would say make that the bottom, so that then the nice clean finished edge up here is the top of your pillow. The sewed up, crocheted up, single crocheted edge is at the bottom. And then this is your back with your color changes. If you did color changes, you don't have to, like I've said. You can, of course, do it solid, do it in a self-striping, in a variegated, whatever you want. But for our purposes today, we're going to be making the flap. And so, again, you would just stitch along all the way across the front of your piece. You want to make sure for the flap that the last stitching that you do is along the front. This is the front with the nice clean stripe. This is the back. So if you did color changes, just know which is which, know which which side is which, because we want the flap to fold over from the front to the back. And so again, you stitch along until you hit the corner, right? So we have hit the curve, the like natural edge here that the shape of the pillowcase makes when you are working rounds and around all the way up. And so I put a stitch marker here to mark the corner, just so I know where it is. But you don't really need this, and I'll show you why. You may, though, want to place a stitch marker on this side, just where the corner kind of curves. I'm going to put it maybe right there. And this will just help you to mark where we're going to work up to, okay? Hopefully that makes sense, because we're no longer going to be working in the round. We're now going to start working rows of half double crochet and some half double crochet decreases and some chain stitches and yada yada. And that's how we're going to make the flap for the button, and you know, you get it. So this last stitch here, right here, this is going to be the edge of our flap. We're not going to do any more along this top edge, and instead you're going to chain one, and that's just so you can turn everything around. And then in this last stitch here that you just made, that you chained out of, you're going to half double right into it, right there. And we're just going to work back and forth rows now across the top here. So in every stitch, you're going to put a half double, just like we have been doing, except we're not going all the way around the pillow. Instead, we're going to work in back and forth rows. And when I get over here to this stitch marker, I honestly think maybe this stitch marker might go better where the curve is a little more obvious. So maybe here. So when I reach over here to this edge where this stitch marker is, I will meet back up with you. But for this row, just work a half double in the top of this last row round up here, and I'll meet you back over here, and we'll continue on from there. Okay, so we've almost made it here to the stitch marker. I'm just going to do these last couple of half doubles. And I'm going to use the stitch marker as the end point here. So I'm not going to work into the stitch marker. I'm just going to work up to the stitch marker. So this is going to be the end of my row. And again, I'm not counting anything. It's just kind of by eye here. But you want to make sure that this row is one row above in the front. So again, the front is the one with the nice clean stripe. The back is the one where the color change is pretty obvious. You want the flap to start in the front, and then it's going to fold over and it's going to end in the back, okay? Because you want the button in the back. You don't want the button on the front, because then your cheek, if you're sleeping, laying on the pillow, your cheek would get a nice indent of the button. So anyway, you get it, right? So this is the last stitch that I'm going to do here. And we are going to chain one, turn everything over, and we are going to do a decrease round. Now this chain one doesn't count as anything. It's just a chain to be able to turn everything around. So the first stitch that we're going to do is going to be across these first two half doubles, and hopefully we can see this. So we're going to decrease with half double crochet 2 togethers. So to do that, you're going to yarn over, insert to that first stitch, pull up a loop like you're doing a half double, but then you're going to stop there. You're going to do a beginning of a half double in the next stitch. So yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, then you have 5 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through all of them. And that essentially makes 2 stitches into 1. But then you're just going to put a half double crochet into every stitch up until you have 2 half doubles that remain here. So these 2 stitches, these 2 V's, when you have these last 2, and again, make sure you don't count that chain 1, because it doesn't count as anything. It's just for us to be able to turn everything around. These last 2, we're going to do a half double crochet 2 together in these stitches as well. And so when I get down here, I'll meet you up and we'll get the last decrease in there, and then we'll keep going. All right. So I have 3 stitches here that remain in the end of my row. So I'm going to do 1 half double in that third one. And in the second and first stitch here, we're going to do another half double crochet 2 together. So you're going to yarn over, insert into the first stitch, pull up a loop like you're making a half double, but then you're going to stop. You're going to yarn over again, and half double crochets get kind of twisted. So just make sure you're going into the top of the actual half double and not into the chain. But I mean, it's not the end of the world if you do. But make sure you see where the little V is. But you're going to yarn over, insert there. Gets a little tight, but that's okay. Then you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. So you have 5 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 5. And so that's the end there. And these decrease rounds, I'll show you on the finished piece I have here. These decrease rounds here are going to give an envelope fold. Is that what this is called? It's going to make it angled so that it's not straight down. You can, of course, just do straight rounds of half doubles here too and just make a flat, squared off flap. That's totally fine too. But I thought the edges here looked quite nice with a sort of decreasing edge. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do 8 rows total of the flap just like this. So the first round of our flap was just one half double crochet in every stitch. Then the next row, the second row, was a half double crochet in every stitch with 2 decreases on either end. And then the third row, every odd row, is going to be the same. So we're going to chain 1, turn everything around, and then you're just going to do a half double in that first stitch, which is the decrease, and then 1 half double in every stitch all the way along. And every even row is going to take the first 2 and the last 2 half doubles and make them into 1, just like we did on this second row. So every odd row is just 1 half double across. Every even row starts and finishes with a half double crochet 2 together. That's going to give you that curve here at the edges. And so I'm going to work on that. You are going to work on that. And I will meet up when I have 8 rows total of the flap done. And then we will move on to adding a buttonhole and finishing off the flap. So I will meet you back up when I have 8 rows of the flap, starting with this very first one right here. So 8 total, ending with a row of decrease. So the decrease is on the corners. And I'll meet you back here when I get there. All right, friends, we are in the home stretch here. So I have completed 8 rows of the flap. If you look here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this last row here is the first row of the flap that we made. So we're all good on length for the flap. And so now this is the only time in which we are going to do some math. So I have up here in my last row with the decreases, so the 8th row here is one that includes the decreases. I have 28 stitches across here. And so we need to find the middle spot to be able to make the buttonhole, because the next row is making the buttonhole so we can fasten the pillowcase all together. So what you need to do is take whatever number of stitches you have here, divide it by 2, and then take that number and subtract 1. Now that's accounting for a 2 chain and 2 stitch skip. But for me, that means 13. So essentially, I'm going to crochet 13 stitches, chain 2, skip 2, stitch 13 more stitches, and hopefully I'll be at the end if my math is correct here. And so initially, I had grabbed a yellow button, but since purple and green are my colors, and I want this to match with the other one that I completed, I'm using purple. So we're going to make a 2 chain wide gap, a 2 stitch wide gap to accommodate for a 1-inch button. If you're using bigger buttons, then maybe do a little bit of experimentation. See how many stitches across your button kind of covers and go from there. If you have an odd number of stitches here at the end, don't worry. Just make one side have 1 more stitch than the other. I promise, no one will ever know. It's okay. And it's on the back of your pillow. No one's gonna ever notice. If you're perhaps making a bag and you're doing a flap like this and you don't want a button to fasten it, you just want the flap, then you are good to go. You can fasten off, cut your yarn, sew in your ends, boom, you're done. For us though, we're gonna do a little bit more stitching. And so I'm going to insert my hook back in, make sure we are in frame. And so I'm gonna chain 1, turn everything around, and for these first 13 stitches, I'm just gonna do 1 half double crochet. The last row of the decreases that we did, the 8th row of the flap, was a decrease row. So this row is just 1 half double, just like they have been. So 1 half double in every stitch. So I have 3, 4, 5, and I totally should have pulled out more yarn. What did I say? 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Okay. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So now this spot right here, this is where the button is going to go. So however many stitches you need to skip to fit your button, and especially if you're using acrylic, acrylic stretches pretty good. So 2 will look like it's not enough, but I promise it is. If you need to do maybe 3 or 4, just accommodate it in the same way that I'm going to show you here. But if you have a 1-inch button like I do, which are very common size for button, we're going to chain 2. And we're going to skip 2 of these stitches. And in this 3rd one, we're just going to continue on with 1 half double. It is a little loose and a little weird there to do a half double after some chains, but we have the buttonhole now. And so all you're going to do is, if you're counting, 13 more half doubles if yours is the same size as mine. But I'm honestly saying the numbers, it doesn't matter so much. Just as long as you count the number that you have in this last row, divide it by 2, that gives you how many stitches to either side, and then subtract 1 from both numbers, and then that will give you a gap of 2 in the middle, right? So I'm just going to do 1 half double in the rest of these 13 stitches, and well, if I can actually do this one stitch, there we go. And so I will meet you back up when we get back to the end here. All right, so I got to the end of my row here. And so just for like every other row that we have done, chain 1, flip everything around, and now we're going to work back. And this is a decrease row. So we're going to do 2 more rows here, and 1 more decrease, and then 1 more regular, one in every stitch, stitch for stitch. So this first stitch and the next stitch, we are going to crochet half double 2 together there, and then 1 in every stitch along until you reach the buttonhole. And so since we don't have that many to do here, I'll just do these on camera. Hopefully I'm in frame. That is always the hope. I can't really see the camera too well and still see my project. And I can either do see my project okay and not see the camera, or see the camera real good and not see my project. So give and take, give and take. So we've completed all the half doubles to the buttonhole here. And however many stitches you skipped, however many stitches, chain stitches you made, or how many stitches you're going to put in the chain space. We're not working into the chain, but around it. So I chain 2, so we're going to half double. Oh, can't grab it. So we're going to half double twice into that chain gap. And then we're just going to continue all the way down until we get to the end where the last two are going to be a half double crochet two together, just like you've done. And I'll meet you up down here for the very last row of the flap and the last bit of the crochet. And then we are absolutely in the final stretch. We just have to add the button, but I'll meet you back here in just a sec. All right, friends, we have reached the last row of the flap and the last row of the pillow. And this last stitch here is a half double crochet two together, as it has been on every even round that we have done on the flap here. So we're going to chain one, turn everything around, and this last row is just one half double in every stitch, one for one, all the way across. Hopefully you will not struggle as badly as I do sometimes. But yeah, that's the last row. We're going to fasten off at the end here, and I'll show you how to do that. And then we're going to place the button and get this pillowcase completely finished. Okay, we've gotten to the end of the row here, did my very last half double. And so the way I like to fasten off is to chain one, grab my scissors, cut a decently long tail, enough to be able to weave it in there, and then pull that yarn all the way out. Give it a tug to tighten that up. And so I will show you first how I weave my tail in, because we've got a couple here. If you maybe did one solid color, you don't have, hopefully, any tails to weave in. If you striped it though, like I did, then you will. And so this side that we just finished, this is the back side of the flap. And so I always weave my ends in on the wrong side, the back side, whatever you want to call it. And so the way I do it is we thread up the yarn needle with our yarn, and then just insert the needle underneath the backs of a few of these stitches. Pull it through, and then go back while skipping over the last stitch that you went under, so it kind of catches. So go back, trying to catch different fibers as you go too. Pull it, and then one more time. So different fibers this time. There we go. Give it a little tug, stretch it out, make sure all is good, and then you can clip the remaining yarn here pretty close. Give it a tug so it all disappears, and that's one tail woven in. We have a couple inside to weave in, but I'll do that off camera. So the very last step here is the button. We are going to add it here to the back flap. It's going to be great. We're going to be able to button this on and button it off and all that good stuff. So take whatever color you ended here in. If you have just solid, then you don't need to worry about it. But a matching color to whatever you were using here, or really here, this color, whatever's this color. If it's not the same as the flap, then pick this color. And I'm going to take a length of yarn. You don't need a ton, maybe 2 feet or so. Gonna cut that off the ball. Gonna grab our button and the other needle that we had, the small thin needle that will go through the buttonhole. Did you see that? Hopefully it goes all the way through. So the way I thread up a needle, specifically a small one like this, where it might be a little difficult, is take the yarn and wrap it around the needle like that. Put your fingers up real tight next to the needle on the yarn. Pull the yarn off and then kind of smush it through. In there. Oh, you know, that's always a fear where you're like, this is how I do it, and then you flub it completely, right? But that's just the way I do it here. And I'm going to tie a knot in the end. I'm going to leave myself enough tail to weave in as well. But I'm going to tie a knot here. And then I'm going to close my flap. Can you see this? Hopefully. So I'm going to just use my finger, right? This isn't like rocket science, and it doesn't need to be. None of this project has been, so this process doesn't need to be either. But this spot right here, this is vaguely where the buttonhole opens, and so we're going to go through the back, from the back to the front, through some of the fibers. You want to catch the fibers, okay? Pull your needle up a little bit, and then plop your button on. And then you're going to hold the button down until you feel the knot catch in the back, okay? And then you're going to hold the button in place and put your needle back through the opposite hole, through your project, through some of the fibers. Catch the fibers as you go. It's not a blunt, this isn't a sharp needle, so it might take some finagling there to get it through. And then from the back, pull it through. Excuse me. We've got 2 of the holes sewn in there. And then from the back to the front one more time. Make sure you catch some of the fibers, come through the other hole, the empty one, and then across and back down, and make sure you're catching the fibers as you go. Essentially you just don't want to put it through the space between the stitches because it won't hold as good. And then on the back, pull it through. And there we have our button. And just to make sure it fits and is in the right spot, ta-da! It's on there. So the very last thing that I like to do is I like to go through it one more time. So pull the back up, go through different fibers, come through that top hole. Now with doing it twice, it does make it a little tight, but that's honestly okay, because the tighter this is on the pillow, the better chance you have of it not pulling off, stretching off, ripping off, yada yada. And I think I even did this backwards in terms of which hole I went through first, and you know, we're winging it here. It doesn't matter quite so much as long as you get it nice and secured where it doesn't feel like it's going to pull off at any second. Oh, we even caught some of the tail there. That's okay. Pull that through. Pull it nice and tight, and then we're going to do a couple of knots here. So I can take my needle off. We are done. Gonna tie one knot here. Not super tight because you don't want it to pucker there. But then this knot can pull pretty tight. And so that is sewn on, and I will weave these ends in, flip my project inside out. I've got the original tail here to weave in, this one, and the spots where we had the color changes. But that is it. That is absolutely it. Once you get all your ends woven in, you are completely done. And I gotta be honest, you don't even have to be that like meticulous about the ends either, because it's the inside of a pillow. It doesn't have to be super perfect. But let's put the button on. Again, nice. It lays nice and flat. Wonderful. And I can show you with our pillow insert in. Shove it in kind of unceremoniously here. At least make sure it goes all the way to the ends, all the way to the bottom. Put the button back on. It's a little bit wonky because I just did it there on camera, but there we go. There is our little pillow. You can't even see it all in frame. Well, that's okay. This is completed. So I have made 2 pillowcases here now in opposite colors. I think they look pretty fun and funky together. I do need a second pillow form now, but I love them anyway, and I hope you do too. I hope you enjoyed making this with me. Hopefully you did. If there is anything that was unclear, or I didn't explain correctly, or I flubbed the words, or you couldn't see correctly, please leave me a comment. Let me know. I will happily explain anything that I haven't shown you properly on video. But I am so excited to have a proper first tutorial out there into the internet. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing, because hopefully this is the first of many tutorials that I will have for you from now on. Maybe we'll see, hopefully. And I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you make the project. If you do, tag me on Instagram. show me on Instagram for sure. I'm Amethyst Craftworks there on Instagram too. And until next time, goodbye.